Welcome to Business Review, a daily program that delves into the latest and most significant economic stories. From stock markets to currency news, Business Review covers the most up-to-date developments in the global finance.
British Finance Minister Rishi Sunak said that he believed a second national lockdown to slow the spread of the coronavirus would carry heavy economic and social costs after calls from lawmakers across Parliament to temporarily reimpose nationwide restrictions to stem the spread of COVID-19. Sunak told lawmakers they needed to acknowledge the stark reality of such a lockdown's impact. The government announced earlier a three-tiered system for regional lockdowns, but many lawmakers and scientists say the measures do not go far enough. Opposition Labour Party leader Keir Starmer called for a 2 to 3 week circuit breaker lockdown, piling pressure on Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is struggling to sell his own plan to tackle COVID-19.
When the pandemic forced art teacher Chae Yong-ga to shut down her classes, she eventually decided to switch gears and enter one of South Korea's most promising virus-era jobs. She became a professional food delivery rider. Chae, who earned a college degree in Oriental painting a decade ago, had been teaching drawing classes at community centers until June. She was also working part-time at a fried chicken restaurant and began to notice the business at the shop. In August, she made the decision to swap her pencils and sketchbook for a motorbike and helmet. According to the consultancy Euromonitor, an increase in work-from-home policies combined with tougher social distancing rules ushered in with the second wave of infections that began in August has led to a surge in food delivery orders. South Korea's food delivery market is expected to jump 40% this year to around $15.4 billion from $11 billion in 2019. Chae hopes her decision will pay off. She earned around $1,500 last month working 6 to 8 hours a day as a rider, slightly less than her chicken restaurant gig, but already 9 times the average pay she took home as a part-time art instructor. She says she's still learning and sees the potential for even more earnings down the road. Delivery service operator Barogo said the deliveries during July to September period surged a whopping 144% to 37.7 million compared to the same period last year. Woowa Brothers, backed by Germany's Deliver Hero SE, which operates the top food delivery service in South Korea, said it added 1,000 riders to existing 2,100 riders in late July, while Barogo said it'll hire 5,000 more. SoftBank-backed e-commerce giant Coupang, which jumped into food delivery last year, meanwhile has become the country's fourth largest employer. The demand has created a huge rush to recruit those who can deliver food by cars, motorbikes, bicycles, or even on foot. In an effort to recruit people, some delivery companies are offering premium incentives. Coupang Eats said riders can earn up to $12.95 an order, depending on order volume and weather conditions.
The International Monetary Fund said forecasts for the global economy are somewhat less dire as rich nations in China have rebounded quicker than expected from coronavirus lockdowns, but the outlook for many emerging markets has worsened. The IMF forecast a 2020 global contraction of 4.4% in its latest World Economic Outlook, an improvement over a 5.2% contraction predicted in June when pandemic-related business closures reached their peak. The global economy will return to growth of 5.2% in 2021, the IMF said, but the rebound will be slightly weaker than forecast in June, partly due to the extreme difficulties for many emerging markets and a slowdown in the reopening of economies due to the continued spread of the virus. Geeta Gopinath, the IMF's chief economist, said some $12 trillion in fiscal support and unprecedented monetary easing from governments and central banks had helped to limit the damage from the pandemic, and support must be maintained. Even then, ending the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression of the 1930s depends on conquering the virus, she said in a news conference. Gopinath warned of a divergent path between wealthier countries and China, which are recovering more quickly, and poorer countries that are headed towards worse futures than advanced economies. The IMF predicted the United States will see a 4.3% contraction in its 2020 gross domestic product, considerably less severe than the 8% contraction forecast in June.
Vintage phone collector Hassan El Turki may be one of the few people in the modern age of microchips and video calls not walking around with a mobile phone in his pocket. Friends and relatives of the 65-year-old owner of a repair shop can instead see him reaching out on his 1898 wooden box telephone, which he has in his living room, one of several vintage phones that he owns. Winding up from his collection, El Turki places a call while sitting in his armchair, an image reminiscent of the early 20th century. In the busy Ataba market in downtown Cairo, El Turki's collection includes a 1933 piece used by Egypt's late King Farouk with his image on it, and others once owned by Charlie Chaplin, Thomas Hudson, and Egyptian and foreign celebrities. He buys pieces from auctions or collects those discarded in old palaces and villas, restoring them to working condition for other enthusiasts. Him and his sons, who often help out at the shop, say they cannot part with much of history they are surrounded by. Turki sells some of the pieces and keeps others he intends to pass on to his sons.
South Korea's Hyundai Motor Company started construction on a research and development center in Singapore that will house a small-scale electric vehicle production facility. Speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony, Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong said the facility may produce up to 30,000 electric vehicles annually by 2025 and represents an investment of $295 million. Singapore is one of the world's most expensive places to buy a car and does not currently have any auto manufacturing capacity, but the wealthy city-state has set out ambitious plans to phase out petrol vehicles by 2040. A Hyundai spokeswoman confirmed the 30,000 unit target but said that the exact capacity was yet to be determined. The firm said in a statement the facility is due for completion by the end of 2022. The announcement comes after vacuum cleaner company Dyson last year scrapped plans to build an electric car in Singapore, saying it was not commercially viable. Singapore plans to phase out petrol and diesel vehicles by 2040 and make a bigger bet on electrification to cut greenhouse gases and slow climate change. Hyundai said in a statement its new Singapore facility aims to be carbon neutral by using solar and hydrogen energy, will utilize technologies such as artificial intelligence and robotics, and will include a test drive track for customers. The center is part of Hyundai's vision to enable future vehicles buyers to customize and purchase vehicles online using a smartphone, allowing production to be on demand.
U.S. academic Robert Wilson had to walk across the street in his pajamas to deliver the news to his fellow Stanford University colleague Paul Milgrom that the two had won the 2020 Nobel Economics for work on auctions hailed as benefits buyers and sellers around the world of everything from fishing quotas to aircraft landing slots. Milgrom had his phone on silent, prompting his neighbor to step outside and deliver the news in person. Among the insights of the two Stanford University economists in an explanation of how bidders seek to avoid the so-called winner's curse of overpaying and what happens when bidders gain a better understanding of their rival's sense of value. Milgram, age 72, and Wilson, 83, notably came up with the formats for selling interrelated items simultaneously. In 1994, U.S. authorities used one of their auction designs to sell radio frequencies to telecom operators, a move since copied in other countries. In a statement, Stanford, which Milgram and Wilson now counts 19 living Nobel laureates, said their design had been used worldwide to allocate over $100 billion of licenses. Wilson showed that rational bidders tend to place bids below their best estimate of what he called the common value, that is, when the value of an item is deemed to be the same for everyone for fear of paying too much. Milgram complemented that with theories on private values when the perceived value of something differs from bidder to bidder. He demonstrated that an auction format will give the seller higher expected revenue when bidders learn more about each other's estimated values during the bidding process. Stanford University said Milgram and Wilson's auction format was credited with helping shape the entire modern telecommunications industry. The economic prize, won by such luminaries as Paul Krugman and Milton Friedman in the past, was the final of the 6 awards in 2020, a year in which the Nobels has been overshadowed by the pandemic. The Norwegian Nobel Committee plans to go ahead with an awards ceremony, albeit in a reduced format due to the pandemic, in Oslo on December the 10th, the anniversary of the death of Alfred Nobel.
Farmers in 2 Chinese rural regions are celebrating autumn harvest for their oolong tea and Cornelian cherry fruits after seeing significant increase in yields thanks to refined cultivation techniques. In Angti County of East China's Fujian province, the place of production for a type of Chinese oolong tea, Tea Ganyan, local tea farmers completed 60% of autumn harvest for the tea. Thanks to the large temperature difference between day and night and the cloudy weather during autumn in Angti, the oolong tea harvested in the season is at the top grade of its kind among the whole country. In addition, Angti County has witnessed about 15% increase and better quality in its autumn tea production this year. In the East Chinese Anhui province, local herb growers were busy picking ripened Cornelian cherry fruit from dogwood trees. The cherry fruit is an important component of Chinese traditional medicine, which is the main source of income for local farmers. The fruit yields in previous years were around 150 kilos, with a value between 448,000 US dollars to 597,000 US dollars. As farmers have refined their growing techniques and management in the early stage of cultivation, they are expected to double the production output of the cherry fruit this year, bringing an extra amount of income between 150 to 300 US dollars to each household.
This has been Business Review, your daily source for the most critical financial stories. Tune in next time for the latest financial news impacting the world economy.